Our Shabbat B'Yachad tradition is that in the place of the sermon, we offer a story. And so I want to tell you a couple of stories about three important individuals related to the episode that Rabbi Lisa was referencing earlier when the Israelites crossed over the sea. If you will recall, and we've seen it whether in Prince of Egypt or the Ten Commandments, that after that 10th plague, the Israelites were escaping. They left Egypt in such a rush, as we read, that they didn't have time to fully bake their bread or to take all of their things, but they just ran out. And they left, and on their way out, suddenly Pharaoh declared that the army should pursue them. And they kept going, and they reached to this sea. Water in front of them, the Egyptian army behind them. What were they to do? Moses prayed, the people panicked, they wondered whether they should have just waited in Egypt, whether it was all going to be worth it. And as Rabbi Lisa said, we asked the question about why, how did the seas part? And we are told in the Midrash, which is one of the rabbinic stories, that there was one man named Nachshon ben Aminadav who was there with all of the people standing there. He saw that the army was behind them. He saw that the sea was in front of them. And he didn't know what to do, but he had faith that there was a way out. And so Nachshon took a step forward into the sea, and his feet got wet. Nothing happened. He took another step forward, so the water got up to his knees, and his knees got wet, but nothing happened. And he stepped forward again and again and again until the water came up to his neck. And we are told that at that moment, because of Nachshon, because of the faith that he had in God, that was when the seas parted. And all of the people were able to follow behind Nachshon to get to the other side with that miracle of the sea parting, because Nachshon had faith that God would rescue them. And Nachshon had the faith and the courage to step forward into the unknown with faith in God. But somewhere in the crowd behind Nachshon, there were these two men, Reuben and Shimon, we read about in another midrash. They were worrying about the Egyptian army, and suddenly they saw all the people moving, and they took a step forward, and they squelched in the mud of the seashore. And they looked down at their feet and said, "Ugh, what is this that we have to walk through?" And as they took each step, they complained. There wasn't enough mud in Egypt. We had to come all the way here to walk through the mud. And they took step after step, looking down and complaining about the mud and the mess and what they had to walk through. And they never once looked up. They never once looked to either side of themselves to see the water had parted. They never once looked up from their feet to see the miracle that they were experiencing that was happening for them and for all of the Israelites. They made their way to the other side complaining, never looking at the miracle, never appreciating what was happening for all of them. And when they got to the other side and the people started dancing and singing, as we heard, Reuben and Shimon said, "Why are you dancing? We just walked through mud. What's so special that needs a dance and a song?" And they never appreciated, they never understood the miracle that had taken place. And in our world, in our lives, we have people who are like Reuben and Shimon, who never look up, who focus on whatever might be negative around them, and who just complain, and to use our word, kvetch, about the mud or whatever misfortune may be there, never opening their eyes wide enough to see that with a little reframe, it wasn't mud they were walking through, it was a parted sea, a miraculous event. But we also have in our world the Nachshons. We have those people who, despite the challenges, despite the risks, are willing to take a step forward. They know that sometimes we just have to have faith and pursue and do what we know is right, risking the consequences. Nachshon was up to his neck in the water, and he didn't know whether it would part. But sometimes in the face of adversity, with an army behind us and with uncertainty in front of us, you just have to take a step forward and hope and put one foot in front of the other, and then sometimes miracles can happen. And so as we celebrate our ancestors' crossing of the sea, I hope that we will always be able to open our eyes to see the miracles that are around us each and every day. And I hope that we will always have the courage, despite whatever challenges we might face, to put one foot in front of the other and step boldly forward into the future. Shabbat Shalom.